My name is Colleen Hall, and I am the head of content for Haymarket Media and for our MCG group, Medical Communications. And Haymarket Media, if you're not familiar with us, they are the parent company of all these beautiful offerings we have up here. Cancer Therapy Advisor, you know us, you love us, you live us. I hope that you tune into us regularly and read us. PRI, Prescriptive.ai, and Med.ai. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. And so we decided to bring you guys here today because we feel like we have a really good opportunity as professional medical communicators to help educate about what's happening on the AI space. AI is obviously changing the landscape in communication. We all know that. And it's changing what we're doing as professional communicators and also what everybody is doing in the industry, marketing, sales, oncologists, everything. So we thought that this was a good idea for us to do this, and we're so glad to be working on this. The name of the panel is The Digital Bridge, How AI is Shaping the Patient-Provider Dialogue. And it's going to be led by a very dear friend already, this Renaissance woman in the beginning here. Her name is Dr. Kimberly Ku, and she's a new partner for us in Haymarket Media. She does a beautiful podcast called Value-Based Care. If you haven't listened to it, please do. Her whole point of view is about tactical empathy in practicing medicine. And that obviously is going to be shifted how things we're doing in AI. If you ask any AI right now what AI can do for physicians, it's going to be helping to make them better communicators. So this is a good opportunity for us to work with her. And she's working with us on Advisor Amplified, which is our podcast series. She is with Illinois Cancer Care. And Dr. Flora, he is the executive director. Okay, yeah, all right, we should do that. Yes. Yes, sorry. Oh, we don't have your mic on. Yes, Dr. Douglas Flora, he's the Executive Director of Oncology Services at St. Elizabeth's Cancer Center in Kentucky. And he's also the Editor-in-Chief of AI and Precision Oncology. And he's also wrote that fabulous book over there. So I know a bunch of you have come in here to get that, so make sure you get that and you talk to him about it and read it because it's fabulous. And then last but certainly not least, we have Sunil Kamath. He's on our Cancer Therapy Advisor Board, and he's also Assistant Professor of Medicine at Cleveland Clinic, Lerner College of Medicine. And he's going to round out our panel and sort of put all of this in perspective and what this means to the everyday practicing oncologist. So thank you all. Now we can do the applause for everybody. There we go.
Thank you so much for coming today. I'm very eager to speak with Drs. Flora and Kamath. This is a really complimentary group of folks because Dr. Flora, I think of your skills in AI as taking away all of that logistical burden so that we can actually free up time with patients. And then Dr. Kamath, I think of you as, now that we have the time, how do we fill it with that humane presence, maybe even like a joyous presence? So I wanted to start off with asking, I'll start off with Dr. Flora since you're gonna start clapping if I look the other way. But in terms of empathy, like how do you think about empathy with the logistical and administrative parts of AI, like holding kind of like a hard science and soft science together?
Thank you so much. I think it's crazy now. We're in this phase of medicine where there's never been a day on planet Earth where cancer patients had better outcomes. But it's never felt less personal than it does right now. It feels so transactional. Some of my partners are here. We've been in practice 25 years. And it feels so businessy, it feels so rushed, it feels so hurried that I feel like we lost a lot of what we chose oncology for. And so my hope is as the empathy has never waned, our time has been decreased and decreased and decreased. And so these tools that you're about to talk about, and I'm so glad we're doing this, For me, it's a way for us to regain that stuff and become less transactional and replace the mundane with the humane, so that finally we get back to the reason that we chose cancer medicine in the first place, and that's the empathy. That's the being willing to go in the depths of the caves with our patients and being willing to share in their experiences and share that burden with them that I feel like has been taken away from many doctors as they're asked to see 25, 26, 28 patients a day. And those are chemotherapists. Those aren't oncologists to me.
Yeah. I really appreciate how you think about it like a discipline, where it's very easy to feel some even sort of a pride in our culture to say that we can see 40 patients in a day and somewhat lie to ourselves that we did that well. And you're really asking us to be honest with ourselves. Is that really what's happening?
It's, you guys, there are so many people who care deeply about our patients. I'm a 2-time cancer patient. I'm not shy about it. I had a kidney cancer cut out a cantaloupe 9 years ago. I currently have prostate cancer. And I can tell you, it's 100 times worse than you think it is. And I'm middle-aged, rich white guy who can go to Cleveland Clinic for my care and see Brian Rennie when he was there. Imagine our patients in Appalachia, our patients who can't drive, our patients who don't have a daughter to pick up their meds, a patient who can't understand the words that we're choosing. And so for me, I think that the gap between the care that we can provide today and the gap that the majority of patients receive today is moral injury to me. It's too wide. And so we know that we're 2,200 oncologists short. We're about to be 1 million nurses short. Number of cancer survivors is about to go to 22 million. And you guys are retiring at a brisk pace, you old guys. Dr. Waterhouse is so old he will not remember this conversation at his age. David, it's going to be okay. No, but so what I care about right now is if we can do this thing together and say, we learned immunology again. We learned genomic health again. This is that next thing. This is the next lever that we'll pull to improve the outcomes for our patients. But we have to invest in it just like we did when we learned again what clusters of differentiation were, or what we did when we started to understand how genomic assays and next generation sequencing and MRD and ctDNA affected our decision making. If we don't do that same thing with the curiosity that we approach those things with AI, we're 2 years behind, and every single patient interaction is lessened by that lack of capacity.
Yeah, and speaking of curiosity, Dr. Kamath, I know that you, at the bedside in your clinic, one-on-one with your patients, you're always curious about where is that moment that you can share that actually sparks a little bit of that joy and of being together, of connecting, laughing, humor, maybe even wisdom. So I wanted to see your thoughts about this future we're entering, where we're paradoxically holding this like great intellectualism, but also this responsibility to be incredibly in touch with our feelings.
Yeah, and Doug, I think you really hit on it really well, that the time has replaced empathy in a lot of ways for us. We're just in a rush all the time. Empathy takes time to connect with people. You can't be rushing through the room all the time. And I really think that AI, the tools, both, whether it's scribes or the other technologies we'll have, the quicker diagnostics, all the other interventions that we're going to have, will give us that time back. And I think that will allow us then to really make connections again. We were talking earlier, I really find that there's a lot of joy and actually a lot of humor in oncology, surprisingly to a lot of people. And that takes time. You can't have that on the first visit. It takes many months, many years interacting with people to build that rapport, to have that trust. And it's a beautiful thing. I think when you have that, you can really have those difficult discussions, the things you will need to have with that patient. And again, I really think that AI, the key there is it will give us that time back. So we can reprioritize what we do. Because Doug, you're absolutely right. I feel every day, we're charting, we're building machines in a lot of ways now, and the systems are forcing that upon us. But I do think that this will be a way that we can fight back.
Sure. Yeah, and I was just curious to follow up with that outside of the clinic, because I know we were talking a little bit about the interesting ways that we use AI and some of the more fun talents that we have. Like, I know you love guitar and music and you have a band. but also just thinking about how we raise the next generation. Just how do you think about the way that we live, even outside the clinic, as providers and as patients, how we're interacting with AI as a culture, as our new native language, so to speak, so that we can actually meet each other in the clinic more humane?
Yeah, music's been a fascinating journey for me, for sure. And yeah, I think what's been an interesting reminder is that AI, it's very dependent on what it's trained upon. So I had a funny experience last year. I was buying some new gear at my local shop, and I had this great list of stuff. I was like, oh, I'm so armed with all these great recommendations from Claude. I'm going to look so smart to all these guys who've been in bands for decades and whatnot. And they took one look at that and they were like, this is all crap. I would never use any of this stuff. So if you really want me to sell you these things, I can, but I wouldn't do that to you. Here's the stuff that we do play and use. And it really got me thinking, that with AI, it really depends on what's fed into it. And when I kind of scoured the internet myself and whatnot, there's very little, you're not going to see stuff from, Blink-182 and Maroon 5 and whatnot about what they play on the internet. What feeds into and what it's trained upon is largely not public knowledge. And I do think that's going to be true for a lot of areas, of expertise. So I think it kind of reminds us, we need to be well-rounded. We need to sort of access human knowledge still as an adjunct to what AI can do for us. And I think it also, with that well-rounding, I think it really helps us to connect with people, having those skills. I'm a big sock guy, and so I have several pairs that have guitars on them, and I get asked about it every time. And I find that conversation is such a trust-building, rapport-building tool, which really helps me for those patients that are going to have a difficult conversation down the road. Not only do they trust me, but I'm a real person. I'm not a machine. Just telling them something. Anyone can ask something to their phone, right? But to have me be the sort of human face of that knowledge, that trust that's there is so critical.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. But one thing that I was thinking of as you were speaking, there's almost something philosophical about AI only catching so much that we feed it. It doesn't just catch everything. We have to intentionally interact with it. And what it does pick up on is very interesting in that it has this ability to hallucinate, like it wants to please us, almost like it thinks that's what we are, is pleasing things. And so I'm curious for you, Dr. Flora, how you think about, because you mentioned like moral injury, how could we be better interacting with AI so that it's going to be more of an ethical feeding back to us, not just what we want to hear, and also not limited, because it sounds like experts may not be giving their trade secrets to AI.
Well, first of all, I can't wait to check out these new bands. I'm way too young to know was it Maroon 5 and Blink-182?
Yes, yeah.
My dad loves that music. I'm going to check it out.
We do some CCR also.
Oh, okay,
perfect. I'm sure you like that.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. I'm excited about that. It's hard. Most of AI is trained on Reddit, Wikipedia. Like, these aren't ideal sources for information. So some of the closed models, the enterprise models, take care of that. Hallucinations are down exponentially in the last 3 months. So I think that's going to fix itself probably by next year's ASCO. That will be very, very rare. The new version of Claude was built by Claude in 9 days. So this is different. This is an inventor of inventions. It's not electricity. It's not steam. It's not the internet. This is a thing that fixes itself and designs new tools, sees new patterns in protein structure, folding in 3 dimensions, drug discovery, drug development, new musical chords that have never been combined by humans in human history in milliseconds. And so I don't know that we're fully prepared for what that means, because I also love music and I embrace creativity. And I think that that's probably, for me, something I'm a little bit nervous about. But what about the upsides? So let's talk about what that also affords our patients. What happens if that pattern recognizer that can design chords better than a student at the College of Music at Berkeley can now design a drug or a trial or a predictive metric for identifying toxicities in a bispecific antibody or an ADC that's incredibly toxic, so that we get that patient on antibiotics Monday morning at 7:30 instead of Thursday afternoon in the ICU. And so for me, the misuse case of not doing this stuff is another moral injury. So our center moved into a tool, I won't name the company, but it's an AI tool that overreads 80,000 diagnostic mammograms a year in our center. We found 157 more cancers in the group that got this AI tool applied than the control group that we ran internally, and we did not have a single percentage increase in our callback rate. So just think about that. The misuse was those 157 women would have ultimately presented with advanced disease or more advanced disease, to be precise, and that causes harm. That causes emotional distress, that causes deaths, that causes recidivism and loss of work. And so I guess where I get enthusiastic about this and why I talk about this, why I wrote a book about it, is what if it all goes right? What if we as a physician, clinician community decides we are going to get curious enough to study these things enough that we can impact the tools that are built instead of having Epic handed to us, right? The older guys, including me, I have to own that. When the EMR arrived, we didn't know. It's just done to us. Like, hey, here's this thing. It's going to improve your care. It's going to make everything better. It's going to fix all the problems. And it was a nightmare because they built billing software without really having clinicians involved. And I refuse to have that happen again as this next wave of technologies come. So I guess I would challenge the audience. You guys see these tools. I hope you're using them now in your daily lives. Isn't there a little bit of dopamine when you see the product? If you type in Claude and you say, give me questions for a podcast, it's cool. I do a lot of them. If you say, help me with an introduction, cool. How about a trip to the Dolomites, right? We're going to Europe soon and we're going to have to plan a trip. My wife and I, we don't know where we're going, but it's a couple days away. Probably not going to plan that without Claude, are you? She's an addict. It's like crack to her right now. So I guess what I would say is for those of us that are maybe a couple years ahead, we share the reservations, we share the trepidation, but it's going to happen to us, through us, or with us. And I would much rather be on the with side and make sure that we're leading those discussions as clinicians to protect ourselves and our patients.
Yes.
Yeah, that's such a great point of being involved with it because it's coming regardless.
It came.
Yeah, it's already here.
It's already here.
It's here. But yeah, if we're there at the ground and take it up concurrently, that's the path forward. Absolutely. Yeah,
I get the sense that both of you have this very leadership voice over AI. And when I use this word over because that you painted a wonderful array of emotions there, from positivity, optimism, to even the fear, reservation. And I think it's a very emotionally intelligent skill that you can hold all of that, but still come to a very productive leadership conclusion and not be held back. And I'm very curious how we can help anyone who has those trepidations feel like they can enter an uncertain future holding all of those contradictions, but still feel like, well, at least what I'm doing, the process makes sense, even if the outcome is unknown to anyone, that can still proceed with some type of an unshakable attitude with AI, and maybe even a little bit over AI, like not let it take over us, where we know what our values are and AI is working for us in partnership, but for us, and we don't lose our humanity. So I really appreciate the way that you just spoke, where you included some of that fear and some of that, like what's going on in the amygdala.
So this is crazy that business people understand this. Oncologists are so altruistic. We're just so buried in the weeds of our patients, but this tension is what oncologists do with data every day. We're hearing 35,000 new things this week, and we're going to say, I believe this is true, this changes my behaviors, or this doesn't, based upon the weight of the evidence. We need to demand the same of AI. And I think there's a term in business, it's called polarity management. We care about freedom and security, right? We have to have a little bit of both. You care about privacy, but you care about sharing patient data so that we can find big data sets that let us make better decisions, like screening mammograms that are read by AI, and you need gigantic data sets for that. So for me, that's a productive tension where, and maybe this isn't meant to be political, but our political arena is that there's always a right answer too. everybody's 100% right about how to spend our money, or should we be at war or not. And probably the tension that I seek as a leader at St. Elizabeth is to say, hold both. We care about freedom and security. We care about innovation and safety. And I feel so badly for oncologists because we're in this thing where we've got one foot on the dock and the other foot's in the canoe. We want to innovate for our patients because we know the outcomes today aren't good enough, but we cannot possibly afford one hallucination. We can't afford one misstep in clinical decision support. And so we've equipoised. That's where I go back to misuse, right? If I talk about Waymo, you guys know what Waymo is? Waymo is automated vehicle driving in larger cities. It's kind of the Uber fleet that's coming, but full self-driving in a Tesla. Waymo shared their data. It's a 92% reduction in mortality if you flip on the switch and the car drives itself, versus Tesla, if you turn off the switch, your greatest risk of death in that last 90 seconds before your accident is if you touch the wheel. What if we take that sentiment and say, wow, okay, so that car is safer if I don't drive? What happens if clinical decision support, and Dave and I did a podcast today earlier, says, hey, you haven't sent matched specimens for RNA and DNA for your next generation sequencing, or you haven't ordered an update of a CT scan in 5 months and you're supposed to do it in 3, or whatever. Don't tell us what to do. Nudge. Use a little bit of choice architecture. Give us a nudge. The clinical support tool pops up and says, hey, by the way, this patient hasn't had updates of their next generation sequencing in 3 years. And when you're seeing 38 patients today, that happens commonly in the community. When you're jumping from leukemia to an appendiceal cancer to a breast to a benign heme, I love the co-pilot on my shoulder telling me, hey, Doug, listen, dude, you're behind. You need to pay attention to this. Would you like me to order this? Or the patient's a DPD deficient patient. Would you like to cut your dose of 5-FU for dose 1? I love that idea that these tools can augment you and me, because we don't want to hurt anybody. But when you're hurtling through clinic and you're just loading trucks all day long, 4 people on hold, you haven't done any notes, you're 2 hours behind, and there's families waiting in the waiting room. I love the idea that somebody else is going to share that burden with me, right? You know this.
Yes. Yes, and I remember, Dr. Kamath, you shared this story about how AI actually helped slow you down because it mentioned, I think the word, was it like despair?
Yes.
It actually described a patient's despair and made you go, oh, I better address, there's despair going on.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I have a gentleman I'm taking care of, has colon cancer, also has a number of autoimmune conditions, and so developed sort of vision loss due to that. And he had spent quite a bit of this encounter, talking about all the ways that that's impacting him. He can't drive. He's a big bodybuilder guy, so he really couldn't do any number of the things that he could normally do. And as Doug is saying, as a busy clinician, I'm sitting here saying, well, I can't do anything about any of this. Why are we talking about this? How am I going to move on? I'm already multitasking. I'm getting out of the room. And I was refreshing, my scribe as we're going, and I saw, the output saying, oh, this guy has true despair, feeling of hopelessness. I remember that word, feeling of hopelessness about, his vision issues and whatnot. And it really made me slow down. And it only just took a few minutes, just to acknowledge that and really say, here's how I can be involved. Here's how I can help you connect with the right people to get this addressed. Once he felt heard and validated, it changed the whole experience. Everything else I needed to convey about his treatment went so smoothly. It was bang, 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 and it was an eye opener, honestly. It was sort of a weird feeling for myself, having missed that. I think we all feel that if someone talked to us for an extended period of time about something, that we would pick up on that. But I think it does actually help you slow down sometimes. Again, I come back to time. I think there's so many demands on our time now clinically. I feel like every little change in billing or coding, all just gets dumped on us as a clinician. I really wonder what the tools the AdTech is doing behind the scenes for us. It doesn't seem like it's much. They just have us add things to our notes to accomplish all that. But yeah, I think as we get more time back, I think we can start to add humanity back to our care, really.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing the undercurrent between what you're both saying is this importance of trust, where trust is the ability for someone to be vulnerable or be put into a vulnerable situation. So like our patients coming to see us, they're knowing that they really are putting all of their life or their loved ones' lives in our hands. and that's a decision, and that's a choice. And I'm really curious, I'll come back to you, Dr. Flora. I've noticed that there's a trust shift where it almost feels, and it's probably because as a provider, I'm going to feel it, but in the context of the world, medicine's probably still very respected, but I feel like there's a little less trust in the institution of physicians, as patients are now looking for their own assembly of information, like their family member or their own experiences or whatever they saw on social media, and they'll compile this. I think there's even a word for it, like they'll stack. And now trust is coming in stacked. They have an assembled trust stack. And then we're more playing the role of verifying all the work they've done. And that's where I think empathy comes in, to be very careful that we don't actually get defensive about something like that. But yeah, I wanted to see your thoughts.
Yeah, I've been there, right? I mean, it's, you fall through these floorboards of doubt, and you are just, there's this existential dread that you can't explain. Your brain doesn't work, you don't sleep. It's not your normal you. It's not you at your best. And so I give them grace. And what I try and say is, we're supposed to be who they need us to be when they need us to be that person. And so sometimes that willingness to go into their caves, their dark caves, and feel that thing with them. And, we talk about onkos is the Greek word for burden. We study burdens. We are oncologists, right? And so if I can share in your burden because I spent an extra 22 minutes with you hearing about your despair, or 22 minutes with you talking about Blink-182 songs, we've still connected.
Both important.
We've still connected deeply and empathetically, and we met them where they are. And so I guess where I love the concept of these tools replacing the mundane with the humane is what could you do if patients presented earlier? The drugs were better, the targets were well identified, the toxicities were predicted, the hospitalizations and catastrophes were averted. Well, these are all things we have randomized phase 3 trials now that support the use of AI. Again, if we talked about drugs having these impacts on patients, we would be clapping, right? Herceptin days, were you guys here in 2005? We cried when Herceptin came. I still think about the 3 women I had who died in May before I got Herceptin in June. It's crazy. And we have a chance to say, let's close trials in 4 years instead of 11. Let's not spend $1.4 billion developing a drug when only 5% of drugs get out of phase 1 trials, right? And these things for me, the upside is so great that I'm like, I have to figure it out. I can't afford to let this stuff continue because right now we spend more money than anybody on healthcare and we have terrible outcomes. I hate to say that. I love America. Our healthcare is not great. And so when we compare AI to what we are presently doing, please don't compare this to how Cliff Hudis practices medicine at Sloan Kettering. Compare it to the care that my farmer in Falmouth, Kentucky gets Monday with no wife, no cell phone, no nurse, no daughter, no car, and I got to have him pick up his $30,000 a month drug at a specialty pharmacy. If AI bests that, then 80% of patients are going to do better. And if you are blessed enough, you can go to MD Anderson or Cleveland Clinic or the James or wherever, so be it. But 85% of patients have no access to an academic center, and they're receiving care with me in the community. And I want to be able to keep up with Cliff, right? I don't want to provide suboptimal care because I don't have his fund of knowledge or his depth of understanding of the studies or the ability to do nothing but breast cancer all day long. But I know now that I can log on to a tool that's validated, that reduces the time for me to understand the science, gives me NCCN guideline-based things instead of 168 pages to wade through breast cancer to end up with 5 regimens that are identical. And maybe 3 years from now, that patient has a better chance because I chose to study Saturday, even if it's just watching a YouTube video, to understand these tools so I know how to do a better prompt, so I know which tools are reliable, which answers are reproducible. And again, if it was about a drug, you'd study. If it was about a new class of drugs, we're learning CAR T and bispecifics. We're studying, right? Dave is a lung cancer doctor who now understands CAR T cell therapies. That's an abomination to me. But it's also mission critical. So I credit you for staying current. And this is that next lever that we're going to pull.
Yeah. So bringing this conversation home, and then probably it's good to open this up to some Q&A and just take thoughts from everybody. I had one more question to give to you, Dr. Kamath, and then I was going to share my stream of consciousness. So if you're ready to run away.
Absolutely, let's do it.
I'm
so worried.
They gave me a mic. It's pretty dangerous, but we'll see how it goes.
But something that's very interesting to me, and because we're all doctors who, when we're around other doctors, we can tell very quickly. I can tell you really love people, and when you meet someone, I get the sense you probably have what I call relationship latency, which is where you can have a good relationship with that person, but you just need that time. You need to have that support around you so that you can build that trust up. But you've got everything at your disposal and your ability to do that. I look at AI as that ability to help all of us, what I call reawaken the child genius, so that if we didn't think we were a math person, well, now we got AI, so now we're a math person. Or we had that third grade teacher who just accidentally said something and made us feel bad. Well, now we can use AI and now we can knock that narrative out because now we're all really smart. But to be able to actually think about relationships and how I'm meeting someone and I'm gonna build trust with this person, and maybe AI will play Blink 182 in like Dolly Parton's voice or something. Like you can just do what you want to make that a really fun encounter. I'm really curious, what do you feel like if you were given this magical AI wand that you go in with someone, how do you feel like painting a picture for us how that would look like for you?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Yeah, Dolly Parton and Blink 182. Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I think it has to be about connection, really, with people. I think it takes a lot of the thinking out of it for us. I think if you have expertise, you really know what you're supposed to be doing. I think that's always the gap I see when patients, they bring me things all the time, AI outputs and everything, and they have the right stuff, it's there, but they can't really interpret it correctly. They found of the 10 things that are there, they're usually finding the 2 or 3 that they like the best, but actually don't apply to them as much. And that's sort of where our expertise comes in. So I think with all of that, it frees up so much time for us to be able to make those connections with people. I don't know if I have a wand really just with AI. I mean, I think to me really it's about just being able to, in every aspect, whether it's with patients, to make that pitch for the right therapy, for trials, interacting. I've asked AI, I'm going to meet with Merck tomorrow about this concept. How can I frame it in a way, within their strategy to make that happen? These are the things, these interactions can really drive, because a lot of times it's where you're from, it's your past track record or your institution, but they may not have the best ideas. Some of the best ideas might be in the smallest areas. I think if you're able to frame that in a productive way, you can really advance the field in a way that maybe the people at the MSKs of the world really would not have thought of.
Well, thank you for letting me put you through the ringer there.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody. I'm going to close out and see if anybody has any questions or thoughts for us. Happy to answer.
So just first, thank you so much for your insights. It's so great to hear from you, and also for your vulnerability. It's funny, I'm in pharmaceuticals and in industry and colorectal cancer, and listening to you talk about how you think you can do so much better, and that there's room for improvement with how you dialogue for your patients. I think for all of us sitting here, you've dedicated your lives to curing people with cancer. So to us, you are just the most miraculous people on earth. So thank you for the vulnerability. I guess, I'm a mom of 2 little ones, and it's interesting to see this first generation that truly is coming up with AI, right, for the first time. And I mean little ones, an 8 and a 4-year-old, and they're like, "Mom, show me a picture of, can you make a picture of me doing a backflip?" And I'm like, maybe. And then sure enough, there it is. So I guess my question is, when you think about our space, your space, what are some of the watch outs that, I'm a worrier. I'm an Italian girl from New Jersey, so I like to worry. But what are some of the watch outs that you foresee or perhaps that keep you up at night in terms of this really being implemented and embraced by your peers?
I worry a lot. And the way I've decided to attack it is to learn it. I wanted to study it. I wanted to understand the nuances of this so I could teach my own kids, so I could make an educated decision about these tools. And this is where we talked about holding both. You're allowed to be skeptical and worried and also hopeful at the same time. And I think the agency that I feel is the more I know, the better decisions I'll make. And it's happening anyway. Like you said, we aren't telling you what's actually here. We're telling you what was here 2 years ago. The things that you're hearing about, that's table stakes now. The clinical trial screening, the ambient recording of your visits, the matching of next generation sequencing, RNA, DNA, this is all cooked. This is 2022, 2023 stuff. If we really said how we're using AI in our lives, you would run out of here. You would think we were nuts, because I'm going to tell you, in 2 years, you won't type ever again. Nuts, right?
That sounds beautiful.
No, I'm thinking about this, seriously. So people who code, people who live in Silicon Valley, do not touch typewriters anymore. They talk into Whisper, which is an app on your phone, or Plot, or you pick your device. They capture with unique fidelity, thousands of words, perfectly captured, not different than your ambient stuff. But you can talk nuance. I can leave a meeting with my board and say, wow, okay, and this is for you because you run things, right? I got a weird look from my director of marketing when I mentioned this. I want to remember that. Or so-and-so cringed a little bit when I brought this up. And if you're talking into your phone, you're having a conversation with an assistant, you're not filtering as you type. And that nuance provides such power to these large language models because that's context. Those tokens matter. And if you start to talk instead of type to your LLM, everything changes. And so I really try not to type anymore. I type poorly anyway. But I would tell you guys, take that filter off. Tell them all of the stuff. Most of my prompts now are 3 or 4 pages long. I describe everything that I want, and the output is exponentially better than when I was typing a paragraph or so. And so those things, when you talk about those, they sound nuts because typing is so ingrained in our life. But why? These things work. Have a mic on your desk. You talk into the mic, and you can talk faster, better, clearer. You can really express your thoughts. But if you talk about that replacing typing, people think you're nuts, and they stop thinking about this guy's rational. So I struggle with these things, and we do this. I'm probably on the road 25 weeks a year giving keynotes or talking or our podcasts and all these book signing things. And I'm struggling because I want to turn on my governor because I'm an early adopter, so I don't spook the rest of you and scare you away. But the things that are happening with agentic AI right now, companies are building billion-dollar companies with 2 employees and 150 agents that took them 20 minutes to build. So you talk about a revolution in the world. Pretty soon, information is free, for real. And I don't know that we're going to be looking for kids to go to med school who can understand the 15 causes of pancreatitis. I want philosophers. I want people who are curious and people who ask really, really good questions. But if you start to talk that way, then I'm failing at the change management portion of this. And so I try and moderate it. And with my close friends that live in the AI world, I hear Google talk every weekend. I hear Oracle. And the things that they're building are mind-blowing, and they know you're not ready for it. But if you're not fluent, if you're not even at the prompting zone, if you haven't picked a tool, if you're not talking to Claude, when these people come to you and they say these things, you're going to be appalled. And you're going to miss out on such a unique ability to find abundance in your life, time, treasure, hope, that it makes me sad. Talk about empathy. I empathize with people who aren't in these tools yet because it's about to change everything. We talk about just routine society things. They're estimating, JP Morgan says that GDP is going to go up 5 to 9% in the next 5 years. We've had 2 periods in human history where we've measured the GDP that went up more than 3%. Can you imagine the abundance when the country goes up 3 times faster than our best, brightest economic era ever? All of you are going to be working 3 days a week and loving it. And you're going to be able to read You're going to be able to exercise. Do you know what that is? My wife does it, and she tells me it's ridiculously good. I can't wait to try this thing out. Yeah, I bought a Gibson guitar or a Fender Stratocaster 2 years ago. I've not plugged it in yet. I want to jam with you.
That's a tragedy.
I want to jam with you.
Let's fix that. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought 2 different amps that are AI enabled, and they were super expensive. And I gave them to my future son-in-law because I can't even get to them.
The rule I use, anything that I learn, I always take 5 seconds to think why it might be wrong. Not that it is wrong most of the time, but understand, how did that piece of information arrive to me? What's the credibility of it? What's the level of evidence supporting that piece of information? And AI really should be viewed the same way. It will be right most of the time, but I think if you really push on it a little bit, you think about what backs it, you think about how that output was generated, I think that gives you a lot more comfort with recognizing that it's real and when it's not. I don't know if my 7-year-old understands that yet. I talk to him about it a lot. He just wants me to turn Paw Patrol on. But yeah, I think with time, I think our children will have to learn this. And really, I think that's already happened. I think there's a big gap. I think social media sort of already started that issue of lack of credibility and recognition of credibility. So I do think that's a lot of it for us is we have to teach, how do you know what is a good source, what is not, whether it's human or AI.
Yeah, and I was gonna take a metacognitive moment to just say I love how we're a bunch of professionals here at an AI talk, and you want to ask about your kids. I think that's a very empathetic first pops into your mind type of question, and I love that because that's the whole point. And I think there's a couple things here. One is everyone probably shares that worry as you do. And I think you even had answered yourself in some ways by pointing out vulnerability, where it probably is okay to let your kids know that, hey, I'm not sure if this AI, if I should be sharing with you. And even talking about all your feelings together about what is this that we're doing and is this okay? And I get the feeling that kids are gonna get it at school or their environment. So even if we said, okay, hard no at this age, they're probably gonna people who are getting it from their parents. So I think arming them from the side of, well, I had this discussion with my mom, so even having it around me now, there's some type of an anchor there. And if you feel like that's an adequate space to go from, then going to the logical place and then starting to look at data that at a certain age, before that point, young adolescents, actually their prefrontal cortex really form that well with social media. And so I'm not sure how the data around AI is going to pan out yet. But I think in some ways, knowing that no one knows, but you're trying to have that connection and seeing if maybe that connectivity is going to help you through that uncertainty.
Yeah, Kimberly, I would add maybe one other thing too, that you brought up a great point that AI, it wants things. It wants to understand you. It wants to connect with you. And I think teaching that to our kids, I think, is critical as well. It's not an objective answer that you're getting back. It's sort of trained upon what you've interacted with it before. So that's generally good. Most often, that's going to be a good thing. You ask it, what should I do when I go to Dubrovnik? It's going to give you things that you normally would want to do. That's a great thing. But there are going to be these other scenarios that can be more dangerous, with children especially. So I think just teaching them to recognize that this is not like a search engine where even actually search engines are actually optimized as too. But it is designed to really understand what you want from it and give it to you.
That was a wonderful talk. Thank you so very much, all three of you. Outstanding. So, Doug makes fun of me. I am a boomer who is actually very enthusiastic about AI. I struggle a little bit trying to figure out where we should be going right now. Are you taking on small proofs of concept to build trust Or are you going big and bold? I'll never type again. As I think about ways that we want to implement it, how do you, at least personally, think about how do you prioritize where we go next? And how do we start working with our institutions and the barriers of implementation? And while at the same time, as you were mentioning earlier, about trust.
I'll go back to that foot on the dock and the foot in the canoe. So I'm an executive director of a bunch of cancer centers, and we deal with this every day because I can't afford to be wrong, right? I can't make missteps because I'll hurt many, many people. What we're starting with is, what problem can I solve? What is my most important, most discernible problem that I need to solve? And can I apply these new tools for that specific problem, right? This is the Jim Collins stuff from Good to Great. You fire bullets before cannonballs. So we're in the pilot phase. We've got AI reading our CT scans, AI reading our mammograms. Pathology's coming soon. We're digitizing all of our slides, which is a heavy lift, a very expensive thing to do. But we're practicing carefully. I think that's that holding both. Is I definitely want to innovate, but I want to trust and verify. And so for us and for all of you guys, you all want better, right? There's never been a better day on planet Earth to have cancer than today. Seriously, like based upon what we heard today. Survivals are improving. We've saved 34% more people from dying of cancer since 1991. It's about a 1% increase in survival every single year consecutively before these tools arrive. Before AlphaFold unpuzzles proteins, before we have better drug discovery, contraction to clinical trials. So just think, if we have reduced things 34% with no tools, eventually that number is going to get to zero. And I talk about typing as a big thing. I'll go a step further. If people have access to screening in 2050, we should not have advanced cancers and solid tumors. At one moment, a switch flipped. That cell became immortal, right? We all know what happens. And we're right now, when I see it on a PET scan, it has 10 with 9 zeros behind it, cancer cells, before it lights up on FDG. With some of these ultra-sensitive, tumor-informed AI readings of ctDNA, cell-free DNA is now elaborated, and we can tell the difference because AI reads the patterns. We can find things with 5 zeros before that number. What happens if you and I get a clinical trial that gives 2 doses of a vaccine or 2 doses of something like Keytruda, and you move your drug into a better neighborhood before the drug has invaginated, before it has a blood supply, before it's acquired 3 or 4 different mutations? In every other clinical trial that's ever been produced, having an earlier stage cancer was better. So what if, and I'm about to write about this on my Substack, this is Sunday's post, what if we have a new stage of cancer, and I'm calling it molecular only remission or recurrence? What if we have an R minus, and it's 9 months before the cancer's about to arrive on scans, and we introduce therapy there? Tons of trials were presented today on this. It's called treatment on molecular progression. And it's what happens when we do minimal residual disease and we act on those results, just like our hematology colleagues, right? If you have CML and you emerge a malignant clone and your international score changes, we change drugs. If that same thing happens in colon cancer, we wring our hands. So we need more trials, but what about that promise? Is that someday these tools are going to prevent us from needing to know Dave in the first place. We should all dream about that. But that didn't come out right, did it?
That last bit, I totally agree with. Yeah, I think we have to go big. Other people will if we don't. And we need to be involved with that. And adding color to those big initiatives. Yeah, to your point, we're working right now on disease prediction across numerous things, whether it's Alzheimer's, other neurologic conditions, cancer, heart disease. Are there things in people's labs and what they've told their doctors over the years in their 20s and 30s that we can use to predict these diseases later in life? That's definitely the future. Getting ahead of these things before they need us is definitely the way to go. There's a long way still, but I think we will get there. And as you said, I think with trials, any medication development, any disease state, the ability to move through those drug libraries in seconds instead of years is so powerful. I think we're already seeing some of that now, but there's a lot more to come from it. So I do think we need to dream big, because other people that are not doctors and not in healthcare will do it for us. So I think we have to be involved. But I think adding that color, the ground level color of how that gets implemented is so critical too.
Yeah, whenever there's a big decision to be made and it seems like it's impossible to really have anybody know what the right answer is, I nerdily think about history and how did other people take on really big decisions. Like, how do we go forward with AI? What does that even look like? And look back and think, well, how did we go from like horse to car or from talking to a telephone? And I think a lot of it is, from my standpoint, is modeling really successful people who seem to be very good at decision making, the act of mentorship. I look at medicine as, yes, we're a very talented group of people, but I think medicine needs mentorship from communicators, like very masterful communicators. So I've been personally going all out in the sense that in order for me to understand AI, I have to understand communication. And so that's why I love being here with Haymarket, why I'll do anything to go to like a Tony Robbins event, why I study from FBI hostage negotiators. I think to be a better doctor, I need to actually understand what these folks are doing in terms of being able to connect with that thing that helped us evolve from when we were in a cave, like all the way to now. And how did we make those decisions and take those risks and collectively come out so well? And by doing that, the serendipitous result has been the opportunity to see a lot of really interesting inside workings of AI. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to play with AI tools and even get folks who are very high up in the AI world teach me some hacks so that I can go back to my institution and then teach my partners who trust me, and then they can teach their folks. So it's sort of like being that visionary and that brave person who's like, what, I don't 100% know what to do, but I'm gonna look for those successful people, try it. And there's something almost a little bit spiritual about, if you really truly are caring about humankind, there's like in my crazy mind, a Mother Nature who will help you find that way, one way or another.
It doesn't look like there are other questions, but I want to thank you for your guidance. You're awesome. Don't you guys love her brain, the way it thinks? So empathetic.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
so kind. We just met each other, but I am super impressed.
Absolutely, this is amazing. Amazing.